Hey guys, welcome to episode number 580. Today is Monday, so it's Update Monday, and today we are outside in the greenhouse once again, and there is green in the greenhouse. That's right, Greg grew something. Greg kept something alive. It's very exciting. We planted some seeds last week, and we've already got some sprouts. We've also moved out a lot of aquatic plants and other terrestrial plants that we've had indoors all winter long. So we've got plenty of green stuff out here to take a look at today, including one big problem which I'm currently tackling, which is algae. We don't have enough plants in the water right now to suck up all of the nutrients, so the only thing in there growing nice and strong is a giant soup of green algae. So we're going to take a look at that, talk about how we're planning to tackle that problem, and a whole lot more. So before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you'd like to help support this channel, you can always go check out myaquariumbox.com and betaoasis.com. Alright, we've got a lot to look at out here in the greenhouse, so let's definitely get started. So come along with me and learn how to be a better aquarist.
Alright guys, and here we are outside my grandio greenhouse. This thing has operated like a champ all the way through the winter, and I'm so excited that it's springtime and we have stuff growing in here. Finally. I'm basically only utilizing this left side right now for aquaponics, but we do have an entire second side to figure out what we want to do with eventually. Not in a rush to do that. We've got a lot of our hydroton outside, the clay pebble media. Some people call it hydrocorn. Very light, very porous stuff. I'm just rinsing and washing all of that stuff out here within the next week or so before I start to bring that stuff indoors into the greenhouse and start to use it in my deep water culture beds. So as we walk into the greenhouse, we have a lot of stuff going on. So much stuff basically all over the tops of these bins that you can barely see that there's water in the bins themselves, but we'll get this cleaned up eventually. But these plastic trays, they're basically the levels to those plastic shelving units. Those are working out fantastic for keeping some of the terrestrial plants and stuff just elevated and over these bins, just to sort of maximize my space. It's pretty easy to push those back or pull them forward depending on if I'm working in one of these bins, so that's also working out pretty well. Now let's run through all of the stuff I have in these bins growing so far, including the algae. We're gonna start over here with these little baby juniper plants though, because these are the ones that I got on clearance last fall. These are the Nana variety of juniper. They were $9 when I got them, but they're on clearance for like 75% off, something like that. So they end up being like $2 or $3, which was awesome. And we had 3 of these. Now we have 2 of them, and you will find out why in an upcoming video. Very excited to share what I'm doing with these plants. If you've watched some of my past videos, you might have a clue as to what I'm doing with them, but if you don't, you'll have to just hang tight. It's going to be really exciting to see. Next up, we have a dwarf banana plant, and I got this from my good buddy Justin at H2O Plants. If you're looking for some plants, go check out H2O Plants. He's got a number of aquatic plants, but he also has some terrestrial stuff, which is kind of interesting. So this was another clearance item. I love a good deal. Last fall, and I was actually shocked that I was able to keep this thing alive throughout the winter. Now, when I got it, it only had like 3 or 4 leaves on it. It was kind of beat up, and I wasn't sure if it was going to make it, but I got it for a really good price, so I thought I'd give it a try. Now, what we see here is it's had a little abuse over the winter. There were probably periods where it was too wet, There are probably periods where it was too dry and it was just under like a fluorescent bulb, so I wasn't taking the best care of it. What I definitely need to do here ASAP is repot this thing and give it like a pot that's at least 2 or 3 times this size. And I think what that will do is allow it to grow, maybe fertilize it a little bit. And as you can see, there's plenty of young growth underneath here, and there's plenty of healthy growth on the top. In fact, you can see it's still green on the inside here. It's just some of these leaves have sort of stunted out, and it looks like it's definitely missing some nutrients. I don't know if that was just like a watering issue or if it's missing a micro or macro nutrient, but it's basically been in this pot for probably a year without much care or attention. So it's definitely time to give him an upgrade. Looking forward to that. Hopefully we can grow him a little bit more, and I'm excited that I kept it alive through the winter. I'm not very good at that, so that's exciting too. So hopefully he'll live out here for the entire summer, and then I'll bring him in next winter as well. So we'll see if I can keep him alive. In here we've got some Marimo moss balls. These things are like impossible to kill, and also some banana plants. These came from betaoasis.com. If you want to go check out Beta Oasis, we do have plants as well, which is very exciting, and they're coming straight from our farm in Florida, so they are very healthy as well. And these banana plants, when I got them, they only had like 1 leaf and not a whole lot of root growth, and I just chucked these in a container like this on the ground for like 2 or 3 months throughout the winter, waiting to bring them out here, and lo and behold, they actually grew in pretty well. So definitely pleasantly surprised by that. So all of our banana plants and all of our moss balls have made it. You can see the water is a little green in here. That's because I used the water from these bins to top these off. So we do have some algae growing in these. Hopefully the plants can sort of counteract that within the next few days, but we'll see who ends up winning. In here we've got a lot of Anubius. I think there's 2 different varieties in here of Anubius. A larger one here, the Azophelii, I think is how it's pronounced. I'm not an expert with the scientific names. And then we've got the Nana, the dwarf Anubius as well. And these are like adorably cute, just like so tiny. And it's amazing. Like Anubius, if I'm not a plant person. I'm becoming more of a plant person with every day with this greenhouse. I am not a plant person at all, and I am really good at killing plants. And again, these things have been sitting on the floor of my basement with no light basically for 3 or 4 months straight. Actually, some of these have even been around since the aquatic experience last year, and they're still alive, they're still green, they're still healthy, they're still growing. They got great roots, and I haven't lost a single one of them. They're not even planted in the substrate. They're just floating around in here, which is crazy. So, super happy with that. In this tub, this is actually a little bit cooler. The water is a little bit cooler, and I'm actually a little concerned about that right now because we had a frost warning last night, which is absolutely absurd. For the end of April, like we should not be having any more frost, but there was a frost warning. I don't think it really applied to the water temperature in here or the air temperature in this greenhouse because it does stay warmer than the outdoors, so that's good. But nonetheless, these are all tropical plants, so I was a little concerned with that. What we did was we took some of the plants that we got from L.R. Brett's from the NEC convention, and we potted a few of them and just dropped them into this bin for right now. Not sure how many of these are actually going to make it. We've got a number of different varieties of val and other plants that I don't know the names of. If you know, let me know. But we do have a little bit of rock wool here just to hug the roots, and then I put those in a net pot here so I could just sort of dunk that down to the bottom and keep it in place, just sort of anchor where the roots are. So that the leaves can just go wherever they want. Anyways, it's hard to see these right now because we do have a lot of algae
in the water. We will be addressing that towards the end of the video. All right, in here we have, oh geez, this is probably at least a half dozen different varieties of plants. A lot of them are floating plants. I don't really know the names of many of these. There are at least 2 or 3 different types of mosses. There's dwarf baby tears. I think there's some rickia. I believe there's some guppy grass in here. It's just a total mess. And the reason is when I got all of these plants from Lucas at the NEC, I didn't have time to deal with them. It was late at night, I had a lot going on, and I just tossed them all in a couple of these bins together, and they sort of mixed themselves up. I did eventually plant some of them, like the bigger ones here, but the rest of them, especially the floating and the moss type ones, just sort of all hang out in here for right now. My theory is that whichever one ends up living is the one that I want to keep. So we'll see how these do. I may take some better care of some of the more expensive ones as well. I know there's some dwarf baby tears in here. We'll see. I don't really have CO2. I don't plan on getting any setups that have CO2. So if there's something that's easy, low light, and will live in the greenhouse, that's what I'm gonna keep. All right, now we get to our seedlings. These are super exciting. If you watched my video from, I think it was a week ago, we planted a whole bunch of seeds in these trays. We used the rock wool cubes that have the little holes in the middle, and then we labeled all of the seeds that we put in those holes. And this tray is all lettuce. The entire tray is lettuce. And as you can see, we've got a lot of lettuce sprouts. They took off. I saw root growth the next day after I planted them, and I saw like green the next day after that. It's crazy how fast lettuce grows with a little bit of rock wool and a little bit of water down in the bottom of these trays. So I'm trying to keep the tray just lightly watered on the very bottom to keep the rock wool saturated, but not like drowning in water. And that seems to be working out pretty well so far. Super happy with the lettuce progress. I'm probably gonna have to move these over to my little net pots here pretty soon because they're just taking off. And I may need to actually prune back some of the stalks here because I think I've tossed like 5 or 6 seeds in every hole, not knowing how many would germinate, and the answer is all of them germinated. So this thing looks absolutely crazy, packed full of stalks of lettuce. So excited to see that. Hopefully we can prune it back a little bit and get those set up in their own raft here soon. And the plan with that is to take one of those rock wool cubes, stuff it in here, and then take this and drop it into a flat sheet of styrofoam that has holes cut out all along like the center of the styrofoam. And then each of these pots will just sort of sit in that styrofoam tray, allowing the roots to go down into the water and allowing the plants to grow up into the space of this greenhouse. So that's the lettuce right there. Really excited about that. We've also got some other plants here which are germinating and doing really well. These 2 rows are yellow tomatoes. These ones are growing a little bit slower, but we've got some basil here on these 2 rows. And then we've got, I think, 2 or 3 rows of cherry tomatoes here. Cherry tomatoes here. Similar growth to the yellow tomatoes. Both of them are like the cherry, the small variety of tomatoes. And then on the end here, we've got more yellow tomatoes. So a lot of tomatoes in this tray, and it looks like we'll get quite a few plants out of this as well. And if you know anything about aquaponics, you know lettuce and tomatoes are basically your 2 staples. They're the easiest vegetables by far to grow. They're not very demanding. They can take being submerged, like their roots being submerged in water, and they do really well. So really happy that these 2 trays germinated, and if nothing else, I should be able to grow these 2 trays
in this greenhouse this summer and get some good crops out of those. So this is just the beginning of the lettuce and the tomatoes. All right, down here we have like green beans or string beans. These are really big beans, and as soon as I put water into the rock wool, all of these things pop straight back out, and I'm not sure if they're going to germinate or how long it might take for them to germinate. These are a plant that's better suited to soil, and I believe they want to be completely underneath the soil or the substrate. So I'm not sure how happy they're going to be in this rock wool, but I had an extra thing of rock wool and I had a ton of these green bean seeds. So I decided to just push those in as far as I could, and we'll see if they decide to sprout and how well they do in these net pots in the deep water culture aquaponics system. So moving on over here, we've got some more plants that are hiding in the abyss of green algae water, and most of these are Java ferns. And what I decided to do here was I just stuck the rhizome in the pot. I loosely packed a couple pieces of the hydroton clay media over the top, whoops, and then just tossed them all in the bottom here so that they would sink and sort of have their own space. So there actually is like a good number of them in here. You can just barely make them out right now because this has so much algae in the water, but we're gonna fix that. Hopefully they're getting enough light here, sunlight throughout the day, that they're fine until we clear up the algae. Now, we've got some more terrestrial plants that we're trying to convert over to being more aquatic plants. This is a spider plant. We got some really good growth on that. Basically what I did was I took a mother plant, spider plant, which was in soil, like in a pot, and I just pulled one of the baby spider plants off of it, and I tossed the roots in my water, actually the water that I had my Daphnia in, and the roots grew really well, so I decided to transfer it over into a little jar with, again, some more hydrogen media filled up to the top with water, and we'll see how he does. I think he'll do really well. We do have some terrestrial plants here with traditional soil. These ones are mostly going to start in here in the greenhouse, hopefully, and then I'll transfer those outdoors and maybe put them in a raised bed, or maybe put them in their own pots of soil. But these things probably won't do well in just water, in like aquaponics. So we'll see how they do outside. I just planted these seeds the other day, so they have not germinated yet. I wouldn't expect them to. We've got some zucchini. We've got some more zucchini. We've got some extra tomato seeds that we had left over. We've got some summer squash, more summer squash, an entire tray of summer squash. So if we can get 2 or 3 rows of zucchini and an entire row of summer squash to grow here, that's going to be a lot of food for the plecos over the fall and winter. Hopefully I can maybe freeze some of that or something and get just a ton of vegetables, because right now I'm going through probably either 1 cucumber, zucchini, or summer squash. I try to rotate. I go through one of those every day or 2 with all the plecos that I have, all the ancestris that I have in my basement fish room. So growing a lot of those would be really good. Over here, I just have an assortment of different size terracotta pots that were roaming around on the bottom of my shed and in my basement. I just collected them wherever I could. And we've got a lot of string beans again, and we do have some yellow tomatoes as well. So an assortment of those planted. Again, I planted those yesterday at the same time I planted these. I wouldn't expect them to be germinating yet, so we'll give them like a week or so in here, and hopefully we see some life. And we've got some pothos going. I've got a lot of pothos that I adopted, and this is just one little sprig. Again, it's in its own little container with some hydrogen filled up with water, and hopefully what we can do this year is get the roots just going into these tubs and then wind the branches like all the way up along the greenhouse here. Hopefully not stealing too much of the sun from the plants, but we'll see. I think that would be kind of cool. Just get some more green, some more life out here. And then the last sad little tray we have over here, we've completely run out of space to put stuff already in here. The one plant which I was looking forward to the most, these hot peppers over here, are not, they don't seem to be germinating yet. I mean, there may be a little bit of activity in there, so we'll give them, you know, another week or so and maybe they'll start growing. I'm really hoping they do because I want to see those do well. And then we've got some cilantro, which is slow. We got some more cherry tomatoes and some rosemary, and the rosemary is very slow as well. So I've still got this plastic cover to put over the top. We got a little bit of water in the bottom of the tray. We'll leave this out here. Hopefully it'll be nice and sunny. Although I think we're gonna get more rain. But either way, hopefully these will germinate here soon, and then we'll have plenty of plants to work with. I'm so excited to get all of this greenery out here in this greenhouse. It makes me feel sort of accomplished after years and years of being really good at killing aquatic plants. Finally I have a space with natural sunlight to be able to grow stuff as nature intended it, without CO2, without LED lights, without any of that stuff. And turns out Mother Nature does a pretty good job, even when you're in sort of a shady area. So we only get probably, I don't know, 3-4 hours of good sunlight in the morning here, and apparently that's enough to grow some of this stuff. So we'll see how it does over the course of the spring and the summer. All right, now as we wrap this up, let's talk about the algae problem that we're having. This is running rampant. It started in the winter and it's still going strong now, even after big water changes. And there's a couple different ways you can tackle this. You can throw a bunch of like algicide liquid in the water and it will kill it and clear it up pretty quick. I don't really feel like doing that because I've got fish out there and I don't want to harm them. And I've also got a lot of plants in here that I intend to eat. So I don't want to toss unnecessary chemicals in my water with those things sort of on my mind. So with that being said, I thought I would turn to my good friend, the Diatomaceous earth filter. I bought this thing for my fish room probably 2 years ago, and I've never set it up. I just haven't had the space or the time to set it up. But now I have the need to set it up. I absolutely need to set up this Diatomaceous earth filter, and what that will allow me to do is very quickly clear up this green water. I mean, maybe even like overnight I might be able to clean up the green water. This is a gigantic filter. If we open this thing up, it's basically designed for a pool. That's how big this thing is. If we open this up, we can see it's sort of like a big canister filter that you would see for an aquarium. But then it's got all of these little arms, all of these little fingers, and there's a very fine like felt sleeve that goes over each one of these. And what you do is you allow the filter to suck up diatomaceous earth, which is basically like microscopic little fossilized life, and it coats all of these fingers. And like a filter, like you would expect of a filter, the water has to go through that sort of that layer, that membrane, to get through and then pass through the filter. So the water is under pressure. The diatomaceous earth is sort of swirling around on the inside of this canister filter. It coats all of these fingers, and then all of the green water has to pass by the diatomaceous earth. And what it does is it's incredibly sharp, and it basically rips and tears and shreds up all of your little microscopic green water algae cells at the cellular level. This stuff is so small that at the cellular level it's basically tearing up all of the algae and you know, then it's basically destroyed. So within, you know, a matter of a day or two after all of the water has cycled through here a few times, you can imagine the diatomaceous earth gets a little plugged up. You have to do like a backwash and a recharge every once in a while on the diatomaceous earth, but everything that passes through it gets stuck to it and gets basically torn to shreds by the diatomaceous earth, which is really cool actually. And it's a really old form of filtration technology that's not really utilized a whole lot anymore in the aquarium industry, at least not at the hobbyist scale. But it's really good for pools, it's really good for ponds, and I'm really looking forward to setting this thing up. So I'm not 100% sure where it's going to go. I've got to read some of the instructions to make sure it's going to get enough pressure to operate correctly, and I've got to figure out where I want to put my things like my drain lines and whatnot, so I can set this thing up year-round, and then in the fall when I turn the water off and drain everything, I can just leave this out here and not have to worry about it. It also needs to be in an area where I can access it and clean it if I need to. So for now, it's just sitting right here, and we'll work on it in the coming weeks. But this is a look at all of my greenery in the greenhouse. Feeling pretty happy with myself.
Alright guys, and that's gonna do it for this week's video. I'm having a ton of fun out here in this greenhouse. The days are getting longer, I get to spend more time out here and get a lot of stuff accomplished, which is always a lot of fun. Now, one thing I'm gonna add to this greenhouse after I've got that diatomaceous earth filter set up is a shop light. I wanna get either a waterproof or a vapor-proof shop light, something that you would see in like a parking garage or something like that, so that I can hang that from the top of this greenhouse. We've got electrical out here, so it just makes sense to get a light out here so I can just turn it on and work even if it's nighttime. I think it would look really cool illuminating this entire greenhouse like a giant UFO spaceship in the middle of the night, and just working as late as I want on all of the projects and things that I have going on out here. Having a greenhouse has just opened up so many more opportunities to me as a fish keeper. It's sort of one of those things where when you graduate from like a small 10-gallon tank and you get like your first 55-gallon tank, it's like, wow, you can do so much more stuff. You can get different species, you can get different equipment, you can start breeding, you can do all kinds of fun things that you never knew you could do with just a small tank. You sort of have that same moment when you graduate to a fish room. You're like, wow, I've got a whole rack full of aquariums. I can do whatever I want. I can breed whatever I want. I can keep whatever I want. I can collect whatever I want. And I feel like this greenhouse is sort of another one of those big moments where I'm just starting to realize how much potential and how much more growth and fun I can have outdoors as well as indoors. Now, I know a lot of serious aquarium hobbyists are also pond hobbyists because it is fun to be outdoors in the summer. People don't want to be cramped up inside throughout, you know, the entire summer working on their aquariums. So I think it's sort of a nice thing to take this year off and be able to spend the summer out here. If you watched one of my recent videos, I did mention that I am tearing down my fish room. That is confirmed. That is definitely happening this summer. Everything I've got out there, except for maybe the stock tank, everything that's in there is coming out here. And if it lives, it lives. If it breeds, it breeds. I'm hoping everything will warm up to the point where all of those tropical varieties will just start breeding like crazy, going from a 40-gallon breeder to a 60-gallon tub with basically an unlimited food supply. They should do really, really well. And while all of those things are out of the basement, all of those stands, all of those aquariums, everything is getting ripped out and I'm going to be working on a very, very big project with ZoomEd. We're going to build the Lowboy Fishroom. Now, ZoomEd is not sponsoring this, but they are helping me out, and I'm very appreciative of that. So that will be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to do a lot of big things this summer, outdoors and indoors, and it's all going to be really, really awesome. Anyways, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.